Reviews!
Hey, welcome back to X Figure Reviews. If it's your first time checking out a video, good job checking out this one first, because this is what's going to break down how I do reviews of figures. If this is not the first time checking out, welcome back, right? So, I just wanted to make a quick video for you all to talk about my X scale and what it is and how I use it. I'm not going to get into too much detail. I just want to give you a rundown. That way you understand how it is I come up with the scores that I come up with, because I feel like I want you guys to be on the same page as me, at least a little bit. So, basically, if you see my videos, you know I rate the figure between 1 and 100. And I do this to kind of help me keep a more objective view of the figure, and there's a lot of math involved. Less feeling and more math. So I hope that it keeps my bias out of it, because I love a lot of figures or a lot of characters. So it keeps me out of it. That way you can just kind of judge the figure based on what it is. So how do I come up with the score? Basically, I have 6 categories that I rate the figure on, and then I add up those totals to give me the sum, and that is going to be the total score. So the 6 categories that I rate the figure on. First, I start with need or necessity, and that's exactly like it sounds. Do we need to have this figure? Is it going to help me complete any of my collections? And things I look at, is this a Comic Con exclusive? Is this like a repaint of an exclusive? Is this going to be like a single issue? Was this only in 1 or 2 issues ever in a comic book? Do I need this outfit or gimmick or whatever? I look at those things. Was it a repaint at all? Is it just retooling? Are there any new accessories with this figure? So I look at that, and then that's kind of how I get the score. Then I also will look at the value, and this is probably the most important piece, I think, of the whole X scale. It's the heart of it, because I try to make it universal so I can compare figures from Hasbro to Figuarts to NECA to Mayfix. So I have to add value in there, right? And also, as the viewer, you guys watch these videos to kind of say, should I pick up this figure, right? And value is a big part of that, for sure. So, well, unless you're just watching to like maybe drool over a figure, but I mean, I do that sometimes. I catch myself watching reviews of figures I already own, even. I don't know if that's you guys, but I do that. So maybe it's a guilty pleasure of mine. So I look at it and I say, how much is this figure worth? And if it's not like a modern release, I'll look and I'll look up prices on Amazon and eBay, and I'll let you guys know, what you can find this figure for online. And then I'll say, is it worth this price? And then I might even say, what price it may be worth getting, okay? And I'll look at, like, what accessories it comes with, how many accessories, and how many figures you get in the pack. I'll look at all that, because that's important for value, right? And I'll use all those factors to give you guys a score for it. Then we use paint, and the paint is not just paint, it's also quality control, okay? So it's basically just aesthetic of the figure. I'll look at it and I'll say, is it sloppy? Is there a lot of like blurry lines or paint speckling that shouldn't be there? Is there any like plastic molding issues, anything like that? And that will deduct points. And then I'll look and see if there's any special effects paint, like dry brushing or shading of any kind, or even like metallic paint or anything like that. I look for good and clean paint applications, and I just kind of rate the figure on that. Okay. Sculpt. This is where articulation really comes into play, but not just articulation. It's also, does it look like a toy? Because we are adults and we do not have toys. We have collectibles. So it's important that they don't uh, look like a toy necessarily. So unless that, like the uh, the Reveltech figures that have come out, those guys have crazy articulation, and there's a point where you have so much articulation it looks like a toy. So how do you really balance that whenever you have figures like the NECA Ninja Turtles that just came out that look just like Jim Henson made them, right? So you can't really see the joints. So I kind of found a system that works, I think, to balance that out with the sculpt. So I look at it, I say, how many points of articulation does it have? I'll say, does any of the molding or tooling get in the way of the articulation? Like, is there a cape or gauntlet that gets in the way of the arms or anything like that? And then, of course, I'll deduct points if necessary. I'll also look and see, can I see a lot of joints, or are the joints well hidden? I look at all this stuff, and I do have a little bit of a formula where it balances itself out, okay? So not one form is better than the other. Sometimes, if I can see the joints, if there's a whole bunch of joints, it's okay. Other times, if there's not a lot of joints, but I can also see them, that's awful, right? So we kind of, I try to go, the scale really kind of leads one way or another. It's gonna have not a lot of articulation, but it's well hidden, or it's gonna have a bunch of articulation, then it's okay that I can see it. So that's kind of how I made the scale work for that. And I also look at like weapon storage too for sculpt, and like accessories. Like, did the figure come with katanas that they can't even hold because the grips hands are just like too loose, or is there no gun holster, right? But he comes with like 3 guns and he can't hold any. He can only hold one in his hand and the other 2 just lay around because they didn't put a gun holster. So I look at things like that, general sculpt things that we want to see. Then I also look at durability. And the durability doesn't just necessarily mean sturdiness of the figure. It also is like about posability. Like, will it withstand my pose that I put it in, right? So it's not just, will this figure last me and not break, but will it also last the position that I put it in? So I look for loose joints. I look for like loose bits, things like wristbands or straps, that aren't necessarily sculpted onto the figure. You really see a lot of these in Marvel Legends, especially, so I think you guys know what I'm talking about. I just look for like loose bits that fall off the figure easily or fall out of place easily. I'll look for loose joints, and then of course I look for broken things, because broken is the opposite of durability, obviously. So then lastly, I look at accuracy. And for accuracy, this is one of the most important things for me as well, because I know, maybe I just speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure I don't. Whenever I buy a figure, I want it to look like the character it's supposed to represent. If it doesn't look like the character represents, then I don't want it at all. And that's just how it works, right? Because we don't buy the figures for the sake of buying figures. These things cost money, and especially with how many figures there are to choose from, it's not worth it if they don't even represent the character correctly, right? So I do judge this harshly, and what I generally do is I compare it to what the toy manufacturer tried to do with it. So if they claimed it's going to look like a classic or like a first appearance, I'll compare it to that. I will, and I'll judge it harshly, and I'll even judge it close in that era. Sometimes if they claim first appearance or classic, I'll look at like the first 3 or the first handful of appearances, and I'll try to like see what it is they're trying to do, and I'll judge accordingly. So that's it. And what I always will say too is I throw up a reference photo in all of my videos. So I'll always tell you like, hey, here's a reference photo of this comic page or what have you, of what this guy or girl should look like. That way you always have a point of reference in your mind. And that's it. Necessity, value, paint, sculpt, durability, and accuracy. Those are the 6 categories that I use to rate the figures. And what I will say too is whenever I do give you guys a final score, I always will tell you what it was that really made the score suffer. So if it was accuracy, I'll let you know. I'll say, if you don't care about accuracy as much and you just want this figure, then go get it. Or if you don't care about articulation, go get this figure. Or, I'll always give you that choice and give you that information. That way you know what it is that's dragging the score down. As far as what the score really means, it is a little bit more than a number, right? I compared this to school. I don't give letter grades because these are toys and we have a little bit more fun than that. But just so you have an idea, obviously if the score is a 100, it's perfect. It's a perfect figure. There's no reason you shouldn't get it. Everyone in the world should own it if it's a 100. Okay. If it's a 95 to 99, it's near perfect. And once again, just about everyone in the world who ever thought about owning it should own it, right? 90 to 94, yes, it's just gonna be a solid yes, absolutely. If you want the figure, it's a solid buy. 85 to 89, yeah, you won't regret it. Okay, if you buy it, you won't regret it for sure. 80 to 84, you probably won't regret it. Okay, probably being the key word there. You may regret it, but if you're a fan of the character, you probably won't. Okay, 70 to 79. If you really wanna, okay, that's what I call that. If you really want to buy that figure, you're a really big fan of the character or costume or what have you, yeah, you can probably get away with picking it up and not regretting it, but might be a pass if you don't really want it or have a solid interest in it. Anything less than a 70, no, just avoid it. It missed the mark on multiple categories, and it's just not worth the buy. And if I ever rate a figure that low, I will always justify it and say what's wrong with it. And I will say, if you don't care about this category or that category, then go ahead and pick it up. Or maybe if you can find a better paint job or find the figure for this price. But as a whole on the X scale, it just doesn't meet the standards. And honestly, I've only ever given 2 figures a score beneath 70, and one of them was on a technicality. So generally, I rate figures, they'll fall in that like 80 to 90 range, so anything over 90 is going to be a good figure. It's going to be a solid buy. Anything less than 90, it's really gets into personal preference then. And of course, my personal preference, if you notice on the scale, accuracy is one of the biggest things, value, and then sculpt. Those are big things for me. Other people may have bigger concerns than those or different concerns, and that's okay. It's, everyone's different. So this is just my scale. And ultimately, it will always go to personal preference. If you really love a character, buy the figure, even if I say it's garbage. But I will never call figures garbage. We're in a golden age where almost every figure that comes our way, even if they are rated under 70, they're great, and I'm not going to take that for granted. And that's not what the scale's about. It's just about putting things into scale and holding some companies accountable for product, I think, and saying, if Tamashii Nations can give us this, why can't Hasbro give us that? And it also, like I said, helps me keep accuracy in my reviews just for sake of consistency. That way, I don't say one figure is way better than another. I have a mathematical way to do it and figure it out. So that's it. That's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting my channel. Let me know if this X scale really works for you. I think it'd be great to get some feedback on it, especially if it's positive. Like, subscribe, and thanks for your genuine interest. Thanks for watching.